For nearly a decade, The Facts of Life taught us lessons about friendship, growing up, and finding our place in the world. With its heartfelt stories and lovable cast, the show became a treasured part of television history. But while the series brought warmth and laughter into millions of homes, real life wasn't always as kind to the stars who made it so special. In this heartfelt tribute, we honor the actors from The Facts of Life who have sadly passed away, celebrating the joy they brought to the screen, and mourning the tragic losses behind one of TV's most enduring coming-of-age stories. Charlotte Ray Lubotsky, known to generations as the warm-hearted Mrs. Garrett on Different Strokes and The Facts of Life, was born on April 22, 1926, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Her voice, at once comforting and commanding, became iconic. But her life was not as lighthearted as the sitcoms that made her famous. Beneath the laughter she brought to millions was a lifetime of grief, loneliness, and struggle, much of which she kept carefully hidden behind her bright red curls and signature chuckle. Born to Russian Jewish immigrants, Charlotte's early years were fraught with the quiet fear of not belonging. Her father, a tireless tire shop owner, battled financial instability during the Great Depression, while her mother slipped in and out of depressive spells. As a child, Charlotte turned to performing to escape the silence of home. A stage became her safe space, her disguise. In her career, success came late and uneven. Despite years on Broadway and television, Charlotte was often overlooked or typecast because of her looks. When she finally broke through in 1979 as Mrs. Garrett, she poured every ounce of her own maternal longing into the role, creating a character that felt more real than her own home life. Off-screen, however, she struggled with being typecast, unable to shake the image of the ever-cheerful matron even when her heart was breaking. Privately, Charlotte faced heartbreaking betrayals. Her marriage to composer John Strauss crumbled when he came out as bisexual after 25 years. The revelation left her devastated, not only by the loss of the marriage but by the haunting sense that she had never truly been known or loved as a woman. Her son Larry's autism added another layer of emotional exhaustion, though she loved him fiercely. She often spoke of feeling helpless, surrounded by applause, yet aching inside. The character of Mrs. Garrett was caring, wise, and unshakably strong. But Charlotte herself often felt frail and lost. She quietly battled alcoholism in her later years, masking it behind professionalism. Even as her fame peaked, she confessed to feeling invisible, her real self obscured by the smiling mask of sitcom stardom. On August 5, 2018, Charlotte Ray died at age 92 in Los Angeles from bone cancer complications. She left behind an estate valued at approximately $4 million, hard-earned, but never enough to fill the spaces left by betrayal, loneliness, and unfulfilled dreams. Though the world remembers her as a beacon of love and laughter, Charlotte's true legacy is one of resilience in the face of deep emotional pain, proof that even the warmest smiles may be hiding the cold shadow of sorrow. Cloris Leachman, born April 30, 1926, in Des Moines, Iowa, was a master of reinvention, an actress who could be comedic, cruel, tender, or tragic, often all in the same breath. Most knew her as the quirky, eccentric Beverly and Stickle in The Facts of Life, or as the sharp-tongued Phyllis from The Mary Tyler Moore Show. But behind the comedic timing and sparkling wit was a woman quietly worn down by the burdens she carried in silence. Growing up during the Great Depression, Cloris was the daughter of a lumber executive who watched his fortunes disintegrate. The family, once comfortably middle class, spiraled into uncertainty. As a young girl, she learned quickly how to command attention, not out of vanity but out of necessity. Being seen was a way to survive. Beauty pageants became her escape, but they left her with an uneasy relationship to her appearance. "I never knew who I was when I wasn't performing," she once said. Her career was vast and varied, but it was never easy. She won an Academy Award for The Last Picture Show, but fame never offered her the respect she yearned for. She fought to be taken seriously, often seen as either too funny to be dramatic or too odd to be mainstream. Hollywood praised her but didn't always protect her. She was often offered supporting roles, never quite the star she felt capable of being. Her personal life, too, was riddled with heartbreak. Her marriage to director George England was marked by distance and infidelity. Though they shared 5 children, Cloris often parented alone, her husband more enamored with the idea of freedom than family. The most piercing tragedy came when her son Brian died from a drug overdose in 1986. She rarely spoke of it publicly, but those close to her said it changed her, made her quieter, less trusting of the world. As Beverly and Stickle, she brought levity and calm to a show in transition. But Cloris herself was in a state of internal disarray. She felt like an outsider in her own skin, even in the roles she played. Acting became both refuge and curse, a place to disappear, but also a reminder that she could never fully escape herself. Cloris Leachman died on January 27, 2021, at the age of 94 in Encinitas, California, due to complications from a stroke, with COVID-19 as a contributing factor. Her estimated net worth at the time was $10 million. But no number could reflect the cost of her sorrow, the endless fight to remain visible, relevant, and loved in a world that often forgot the woman behind the laughter. Marge Doucet was born Marjorie Ellen Pavanka Mahoney on February 20, 1936, in Russell, Kansas, a place where the wind was harsh and dreams often blew away before they had a chance to take root. Best remembered for her commanding role as Alexandra Spaulding on Guiding Light, she embodied elegance and power on screen. But off-screen, her life was marked by unspoken grief and the quiet ache of dreams delayed, then lost. She came from humble roots, the daughter of a traveling salesman and a homemaker who often struggled to feed their family of 6. The Great Plains offered little in the way of art or imagination, so Marge created her own world, retreating into books, dressing up in her mother's clothes, and dreaming of escape. Her desire to perform wasn't nurtured but tolerated, and only after marriage did she find the courage to pursue it. Acting was not just a career, it was a rebellion. Her rise was slow and unglamorous. She wasn't a Hollywood darling, she was a grinder. Her early career consisted of guest spots, mostly forgotten, until soap operas welcomed her with open arms. It was in daytime television where she found a home, but even that was never steady. She was repeatedly hired to replace beloved actresses, stepping into roles under scrutiny. Most notably, she replaced Beverly McKinsey as Alexandra Spaulding, a role fans fiercely guarded. Marge responded the only way she knew, by giving every scene her full heart, even when she felt invisible. Her personal life bore scars that rarely made headlines. Her marriage to physician John Doucet ended in quiet divorce, a casualty of distance and the consuming nature of her work. But nothing wounded her like the loss of her son, Randall, who died tragically in 1993 from AIDS-related complications. She was never the same after. Though she continued working, even stepping in as a guest matriarch on The Facts of Life, there was a stillness to her, an emotional tremble beneath her regal poise. Her characters grew icier, more composed. But her friends said her heart had grown unbearably soft. Alexandra Spaulding was manipulative, commanding, and impossible to ignore. But Marge herself often felt like a footnote, too quiet for Hollywood, too haunted for love, and too tired to ask for more. Marge Doucet died on January 28, 2020, at the age of 83. She passed away in her sleep, quietly, just as she had lived. Her net worth at the time was estimated to be around $3 million. She left behind no autobiography, no farewell interviews, only roles that flicker on screens, where she wore power like armor. But behind the villain's smile was a woman who grieved deeply, loved quietly, and longed always for a little more light. Alex Rocco, born Alessandro Federico Petricone Jr. on February 29, 1936, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is best known to most as the gravel-voiced, tough guy actor who brought mobsters and brutes to life, most famously as Moe Greene in The Godfather and later as Charlie Polniaczek, Joe's father, on The Facts of Life. But few knew how deeply personal his portrayals were. He wasn't acting. He was remembering. Raised in a working-class Italian-American neighborhood, Alex's childhood was a battleground. His father was a laborer who never quite escaped poverty, and his mother fought to keep the home from unraveling. Alex fell into the streets early, joining a local gang, drifting through crime, and spending time in jail. Violence, he later said, became his language before he ever learned how to speak the language of love. He carried fists where others carried fear. By the 1960s, he had changed his name, left Boston, and escaped to Los Angeles after becoming entangled in a murder investigation linked to the infamous Winter Hill Gang. He wasn't convicted, but the brush with death and prison left him shaken. Acting became his redemption. Under the guidance of Leonard Nimoy, he learned to channel his rage into art. But Hollywood never let him shed the mobster image. Though he longed to play softer, deeper roles, he was always cast as the villain, angry men with cold eyes and broken pasts, men not unlike who he used to be. When he appeared in The Facts of Life in the mid-1980s as Charlie Polniaczek, he brought a raw authenticity to the role, a father trying too late to make amends. Off-screen, it mirrored his own regrets. His first marriage to Grace Petricone ended in divorce after years of emotional distance and infidelity. He rarely spoke of it, except to say he had been a better actor than a husband. But tragedy would return. In 2002, his daughter Jennifer died of cancer at just 39. It gutted him. Friends said his booming laugh grew quieter, his temper more easily triggered. He kept working, kept performing as though afraid to stop and face the silence. Alex Rocco died on July 18, 2015, in Los Angeles, from pancreatic cancer. He was 79. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $800,000, a modest sum for a man whose voice had echoed through some of the most iconic moments in film and television. But his true wealth was in the roles he transformed, drawing from a well of personal pain so deep, it became indistinguishable from the characters he played. Behind the mobster's grin was a deeply wounded man, trying in vain to outact the shadows of his past. Conrad Bain, born February 4, 1923, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, became the face of compassion for a generation as Dr. Philip Drummond on Diff'rent Strokes. With his calm voice and dignified manner, he played the wealthy widower who adopted 2 African-American boys, becoming a symbol of racial unity and understanding during a turbulent time in American television. Yet, beyond that kindly facade was a man deeply marked by personal loss, self-doubt, and a relentless search for meaning in a world that rarely gave him clarity. Conrad grew up during the lean years of the Great Depression. His father was a bookkeeper who struggled to support the family, and his mother, a pianist, quietly slipped into depression, her hands too tired for music by the time Conrad was old enough to notice. From a young age, he developed a deep sense of empathy, watching suffering, learning silence. These early experiences forged the quiet gravity he would later bring to his roles. He served in the Canadian Army during World War II, an experience that haunted him. Though he never spoke much about the war, friends recalled him waking from nightmares even decades later. When he moved to New York to study acting, it wasn't fame he chased, it was peace. Despite his classical training, Bain often found himself relegated to straight man roles, dull businessmen, buttoned-up professors. He longed for richer, darker characters but was boxed into affable father figures. When Diff'rent Strokes premiered in 1978, it gave him recognition but also trapped him. He grew weary of the show's off-screen controversies. Dana Plato's downward spiral, Gary Coleman's lawsuits, Todd Bridges' arrests. He felt responsible for them in ways he could never explain. As a fictional father, he was adored. As a man, he felt powerless. His real-life marriage to Monica Sloan lasted over 60 years, but even there, the warmth was strained. He was distant, often lost in himself. Their only son, Mark, would later describe him as kind but absent, always more comfortable in the lives of his characters than in his own. In the later years of his life, he withdrew from the spotlight entirely, turning down interviews, weary of being remembered only as Mr. Drummond. Conrad Bain died quietly on January 14, 2013, in Livermore, California, at the age of 89, from natural causes. His net worth was estimated at $2 million, respectable, yet small in Hollywood terms. It was never wealth he craved, but meaning. And even after decades of acting, applause, and adoration, he still wondered if he'd ever truly found it. Behind his gentle eyes was a man who carried the weight of other people's pain, and never quite learned how to let it go. Claire Malice, born February 17, 1943, in Gary, Indiana, lived a life that seldom made headlines but often left quiet impressions on the hearts of those who watched her. Best known for her role as Rose Polniaczek, the struggling, fiercely loving mother of Joe on The Facts of Life, Claire brought to the screen a kind of maternal strength that seemed drawn from somewhere deep, perhaps too deep. Off-screen, her life was a tapestry of perseverance, heartbreak, and quiet sorrow that never quite got its due. Born into a modest Jewish family in the industrial heartland of Indiana, Claire's childhood was surrounded by smoke, steel, and silence. Her father worked in the mills, his hands always bruised. Her mother rarely smiled. Claire grew up feeling like a whisper in a noisy world, bright, thoughtful, but invisible. She found early refuge in storytelling, taking drama classes at college not for attention, but to feel, just once, that someone was listening. Her acting career was respectable but always just shy of stardom. She found early promise in soap operas, especially her role as Dr. Dorian Lord on One Life to Live, but she was eventually replaced. Another reminder that Hollywood can be brutal to women once their shine fades or their faces age. Still, she kept going. Her work as Rose Polniaczek was brief, but emotionally resonant. In just a few episodes, she portrayed a mother torn between pride and regret, love and limitation. Viewers connected to her because she felt real. But that realism was drawn from lived pain. Privately, Claire battled devastating health issues. She was diagnosed with cancer in the early 2000s and underwent intense treatments, including stem cell therapy. Though she survived the initial storm, her body never fully recovered. Her marriage to Thomas Calloway, a film producer, gave her stability, but friends say Claire often felt like a supporting player in her own life, a woman too used to being overlooked. Despite her warmth and talent, Claire never got the recognition she deserved. She taught acting, mentored young performers, and lived without fanfare. But inside, there was always that lingering ache of being almost remembered, almost famous, almost seen. Claire Malice passed away on August 24, 2012, in Duarte, California, due to congestive heart failure following complications from cancer treatment. She was 69. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at $300,000. A quiet sum for a quiet woman whose performances carried the emotional weight of someone who knew loss intimately. She left no memoir, no farewell. Only the echo of her voice, tired, tender, and true, speaking for all the mothers who loved more than they were ever loved back. Roger Till, born January 12, 1909 in Paris, France, was the kind of actor whose name few remember but whose face lingers, charming, refined, eternally cast as the polite waiter, the maitre d', the European gentleman just outside the spotlight. In American television, he appeared in countless minor roles during the 1970s and 1980s, including a brief guest turn on The Facts of Life, where he played a waiter with elegance and grace. Yet behind those fleeting moments of civility was a man burdened by quiet displacement and the loneliness of never quite belonging. Till's early life was marked by cultural contradiction. Born to French-Jewish parents just before the eruption of World War I, he came of age in a Europe teetering between collapse and chaos. He trained in theater in Paris and survived the upheavals of World War II, although what he endured during those years remained mostly unspoken. Some believe he fled Nazi-occupied France in the early 1940s, but he rarely spoke of it, carrying his past like a sealed envelope he refused to open. When he immigrated to the United States, the promise of reinvention quickly dulled. Though classically trained, his French accent became both his trademark and his prison. Hollywood, ever eager to flatten people into stereotypes, cast him in dozens of roles that never exceeded a few lines: waiters, valets, concierges. He delivered each with dignity, yet it was clear he ached for more. He once said in an interview, "A man can be invisible even when he is on screen." Roger never married. Friends said he was kind, soft-spoken, but intensely private. There were whispers of a lost love in France, perhaps someone left behind during the war, but he never confirmed it. He lived alone in Los Angeles, often reading French poetry, sending handwritten letters to a sister in Lyon, and keeping a small garden of roses he spoke to like old friends. He had no children, no heirs, and no desire to chase the spotlight. When he appeared on The Facts of Life, it was just another day of work, another polite bow, another accent played for charm. Yet, behind the smile was the soul of a man who had lived through terror, displacement, and anonymity. He knew how to disappear gracefully. He had been doing it his whole life. Roger Till died on November 28, 2002, in Los Angeles, at the age of 93. His passing went largely unnoticed by the press. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $100,000. No awards. No headlines. Just a few obituaries in French and English, a few clips of polite elegance, and a lingering sense that here was a man who gave everything to his craft and received just enough in return to keep going. His was a life of small gestures and silent dignity, a performance without applause. Lisa Whelchel, born May 29, 1963, in Littlefield, Texas, became America's picture of privilege as Blair Warner, the spoiled, beautiful, and razor-witted rich girl on The Facts of Life. With her gleaming smile and flowing blonde hair, she seemed to glide through the sitcom landscape untouched. But behind the perfection of Blair was a girl who grew up aching for approval, carrying wounds too private for the laugh track. Raised in a conservative Christian household, Lisa's early years were colored by both faith and emotional fragility. Her parents divorced when she was just 7, a fracture that left her searching for emotional anchors. Her stepfather was strict and distant. Lisa found solace in performance, joining the new Mickey Mouse Club at 12, but even that early taste of fame came with the price of invisibility. She was surrounded by lights but felt unseen. By the time she landed The Facts of Life in 1979, she was just 16, and already wrestling with the conflicting roles of obedient daughter, good Christian, and rising star. Her character, Blair, was bold and confident, everything Lisa didn't feel. Off-camera, she struggled deeply with self-image, once revealing she believed herself to be ugly. While the audience loved Blair's vanity, Lisa quietly carried shame for even pretending to be someone so self-assured. Her moral convictions often clashed with the demands of Hollywood. When producers wanted Blair to lose her virginity in a storyline, Lisa refused. She was nearly fired. She maintained her stance, but it isolated her. While others on set experimented with freedom and rebellion, Lisa lived under a personal code so strict it often left her emotionally cornered. She wasn't allowed to dance, drink, or even listen to most music. Her faith was her guide, but sometimes also her cage. In her 20s, she stepped away from acting, marrying Steve Cobble, a pastor, and retreating into domestic life. They had 3 children, and for a while, Lisa disappeared from the public eye. But the emotional cost of denial, of always playing the good girl, surfaced in time. Her marriage, which she had once described as sacred, grew cold. After 24 years, they divorced. It was a quiet unraveling, but a profound one. She later admitted she had lost herself trying so hard to do everything right. In a surprising twist, Lisa re-emerged in 2012 as a contestant on Survivor, Philippines, where she was praised for her grace under pressure. But even there, she broke down. She confessed to feeling unworthy, lonely, and unsure of who she really was when she wasn't trying to meet expectations. As of today, Lisa Whelchel is still alive, and her estimated net worth is around $3 million. She speaks publicly now about faith, divorce, and rediscovery, but the echoes of her early pain remain. Though she once embodied the perfect TV teen, Lisa's real life was shaped by restraint, sorrow, and a quiet battle between her true self and the image the world loved. Her smile, so dazzling on screen, was never quite enough to hide the ache underneath. John Lawler, born June 5, 1941, in Boulder, Colorado, is most remembered as Headmaster Stephen Bradley in the early episodes of The Facts of Life, a figure of calm authority trying to shepherd a house full of spirited teenage girls. On screen, he played order, control, reason. Off-screen, however, his own life was one of obscurity, quiet disappointment, and the subtle ache of being slowly erased from the world he tried so hard to enter. Growing up in Colorado during the shadow of post-war austerity, John was the son of a World War II veteran turned factory foreman. His childhood was one of blue-collar discipline, early mornings, few luxuries, and the constant pressure to be a man. But John was drawn to poetry, theater, and literature, interests that set him apart in a town where most boys were expected to follow in their father's footsteps. His father never understood his son's desire to perform, and their relationship remained strained until the end. He pursued acting in New York, studying with seriousness and discipline, but he never possessed the charisma that drew stardom. He was dependable, reliable in a role, always prepared, but rarely praised. When he was cast as Mr. Bradley in The Facts of Life in 1979, it felt like a breakthrough. But that promise was short-lived. After just one season, he was quietly written out of the show. The producers wanted the focus to shift to the girls and Mrs. Garrett. John was thanked, paid, and quickly forgotten. The loss was devastating. Though he never said it aloud, friends recalled how the show's success without him haunted him. He returned to bit parts in soap operas, courtroom dramas, and teacher roles, but never found a place where he belonged. He was, more often than not, a man in the background of someone else's story. His marriage to actress Peggy Converse provided some emotional refuge, but they had no children. John poured himself into teaching, taking jobs as an acting coach, where he spoke with quiet bitterness about the nature of fame, how it seduces, then forgets. He lived modestly, avoiding the spotlight, slowly withdrawing from the industry he once dreamed would embrace him. As of today, John Lawler is still alive, living a private life far from Hollywood's glitter. His net worth is estimated to be around $500,000. Though his face remains frozen in time for those who remember the early days of The Facts of Life, his story is one of near misses and gentle disappointments. He was never the star, never the scandal, never the tragedy, but perhaps that's its own kind of heartbreak. A man who gave everything to the stage only to find the world had already turned away. Which character from The Facts of Life, TV series 1979 to 1988, holds a special place in your heart? How does it make you feel knowing that some of the beloved cast members are no longer with us? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If you've been enjoying this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.